Something strange is happening in 2026. The cost of living conversation has completely broken down. People are sharing hacks for saving $50 a month on groceries while paying $2,000 for a one-bedroom apartment. They're cutting subscriptions and skipping holidays while their rent quietly consumes half their income. And the advice keeps coming: budget better, spend less, make it work. Nobody is asking the more obvious question. What if the problem isn't how you spend your money? What if the problem is where you're spending it? Because right now, in 2026, there are countries where $400 a month doesn't just cover your rent. It covers your rent, your food, your transport, your social life, your healthcare, and still leaves money sitting untouched at the end of the month. Countries where Western money doesn't stretch a little further. It stretches 10 times further. And the extraordinary part is that almost nobody is talking about them. Today I'm showing you 4 of them. Not Thailand, not Vietnam. These are the ones hiding in plain sight. The ones that people walk straight past. And the last one on this list might be the most surprising financial opportunity available to a Westerner in 2026. Let's start with the one that is quietly becoming the most interesting country in Europe: Kosovo. There's a moment that happens when people first land in Pristina. They expect one thing and find something completely different. They expect underdevelopment. They find a walkable European capital with cafe terraces spilling onto wide boulevards, a young population that speaks English, a food scene that punches well above its weight, and an energy that reminds people of cities like Tbilisi or Tirana. Before those cities got discovered and before the prices followed. Kosovo is the youngest country in Europe, and right now it is also one of the most financially misunderstood. Because here is what the prices actually look like. A modern one-bedroom apartment in Pristina rents for €200 to €300 a month. A full sit-down meal at a local restaurant costs under €5. Coffee, which the city runs on, is often under €1. Fresh produce at the markets costs a fraction of anything you would find in Western Europe. And your $400 budget doesn't just survive here, it lives comfortably, with money left over every single month. But what makes Kosovo genuinely different from every other cheap European country is something the price comparisons don't capture. The currency here is the euro. English is widely spoken. The culture is overwhelmingly pro-Western in a way that makes integration surprisingly easy for foreigners. And the city still has that rare quality that is almost impossible to find in Europe anymore. It feels undiscovered. Because it is. The foreigners arriving in Kosovo right now are not backpackers passing through. They are remote workers who realize that earning a Western salary while spending Kosovo prices is one of the most aggressive wealth-building strategies available anywhere on the continent. They are small business operators setting up cafes and restaurants because startup costs here are so low that the financial risk is almost negligible. And they are short-term rental investors because Kosovo's tourism numbers are slowly climbing while quality accommodation supply remains critically low. The people who understand what an early market looks like before the crowd arrives, they are paying very close attention to Kosovo right now. And the next country on this list takes that same logic of hidden value and stretches it to a level that is genuinely difficult to believe until you see it yourself. Uzbekistan. There are places in the world that stop you, not because they are pleasant, not because they are convenient, but because your brain genuinely struggles to process what it is looking at. Uzbekistan is one of those places. The cities here were built at the center of the ancient Silk Road. Samarkand, Bukhara, Khiva. These are not ruins. These are living cities with mosques and mausoleums covered in tilework so intricate and so visually overwhelming that photographers who arrive here for the first time describe it as the most cinematic material they have ever captured. Enormous turquoise domes rising above old bazaars, alleyways that have been walked for 1,000 years, architecture that makes European capitals look modern by comparison, and then you find out what it actually costs to live here. And the number doesn't make sense. A fully furnished apartment in Tashkent, the capital, rents for $100 to $200 a month. A meal at a local restaurant costs under $2. Street food is cheaper than that. Fresh fruit and vegetables at the bazaars cost almost nothing. Your $400 monthly budget in Uzbekistan doesn't just cover a life. It covers a genuinely comfortable life in a city of 2 million people, surrounded by some of the most visually extraordinary architecture on the planet, with money left over that you genuinely don't know what to do with. The country has changed dramatically in recent years. Internet speeds have improved. Co-working spaces have opened across the major cities. Visa processes have been simplified. And international arrivals are growing every year as the world slowly starts to realize what has always been here, which is exactly why the timing matters. Remote workers discovering Uzbekistan right now are saving at a rate that is almost impossible to replicate anywhere else. Now, the next country is nothing like Uzbekistan. Different continent, different culture, different everything, but the financial logic is exactly the same. Nicaragua. In Central America, there is a conversation that keeps happening among people who have actually lived across the region. Costa Rica is beautiful but expensive. Guatemala is cheap but feels limiting. Panama is modern but the costs are climbing. And Nicaragua, the largest country in the region, sitting right in the middle of all of them, keeps getting skipped, overlooked, passed by. That is the most expensive mistake people make in Central America, because Nicaragua doesn't look like a budget country. That's the part that catches people off guard. Granada, one of the most livable cities in the country, sits on the edge of Lake Nicaragua with colonial architecture in every direction. Centuries-old cathedrals, colourful Spanish-era buildings, wide cobblestone streets shaded by enormous trees, and a backdrop so visually rich that it genuinely doesn't look real on camera. Leon, the other great colonial city, carries the same weight of history and the same quality of light. And the Pacific coast delivers waves that attract serious surfers from around the world. Then you find out the actual numbers. A furnished apartment in Granada or Leon rents for $150 to $300 a month. A full meal at a local Comedor, the traditional Nicaraguan restaurant that every neighborhood runs on, costs $2 to $3. And your $400 monthly budget doesn't buy you a basic existence here. It buys you a genuinely comfortable expat life with good food, warm weather year-round, and a pace that people in expensive cities spend their entire careers dreaming about. And the final country on this list is the one that surprises people the most, because it is sitting right on the Mediterranean, and almost nobody realizes what that actually means for your money. Tunisia. Here is the idea most people carry about Tunisia. Beach resort, package holiday, a week in summer, all-inclusive, then back to real life. That idea is costing people one of the most undervalued living opportunities available to a Westerner in 2026. Because Tunisia is not a holiday destination. It is a Mediterranean country. And that distinction matters more than almost anything else on this list. Think about what Mediterranean life actually means. The climate, the food culture, fresh seafood, slow meals, coffee that takes an hour because nobody is in a hurry. The architecture, whitewashed buildings against blue water, old medinas with covered markets that have operated for centuries, narrow streets full of history that no city built in the last 100 years can replicate. A modern apartment in Tunis or in coastal cities like Sousse and Hammamet rents for $150 to $300 a month. Fresh seafood at the local markets is extraordinarily affordable. The street food culture is deep and genuinely remarkable. Brick, lablabi, merguez, food with centuries of history behind it, available for almost nothing. And your $400 monthly budget in Tunisia covers a Mediterranean lifestyle that would cost 4 or 5 times that amount across the water in southern Europe. Same sun, same sea, same food culture, 1/5 of the price. The foreigners building lives in Tunisia right now are doing it for different reasons. Remote workers from Europe are choosing it because the flights home are short. Tunisia is closer to Rome than London is, which means they are not choosing between affordability and connection to their home country. They are keeping both. Small hospitality operators are moving here because the gap between tourist demand and quality accommodation supply is significant, and the operating costs are low enough to make the business viable almost immediately. And people who simply want the Mediterranean life without the Mediterranean price tag are discovering that Tunisia has been offering exactly that for years.